So good morning, everybody. How are we today?
Good.
All right, awesome. So we have our guest with us this morning. And Julia, I'm going to let you introduce Michele, if you would do that.
Okay. Michele is a teacher, but I've known her since we both checked in kids at our youth in youth at Victory Church a while back, and just a few years ago. So I've known Michele for a long time, and she's taught public schools. Um, she's taught Christian school and is now at Epic. But Michele has she's she doesn't operate under fear. She is not afraid to say what she thinks, even under some not scary, dire circumstances when other people are afraid to speak out. And that's what I appreciated about her, and what I wanted to talk to her. Why we wanted her on the show. Michele, I'm going to let you tell your story a little bit. We talked about the teacher strike back in 2018 was kind of when you started seeing, wait a minute, what is going on here? Tell us about what your dad said about the joining the union and all of those things, and how your eyes were always open.
Well, when I was a new young teacher, I just remember my dad telling me not to join the teachers union, and I did what my parents told me. So I never really saw any reason to do it. I really don't remember his explanation. I really just think it was they're not a good thing to be a part of. And I really didn't know any more about it. So I didn't join and just started my teaching career. And I remember talking to other teachers, and a lot of them had joined the union, and I remember them talking about how expensive it was. And, teachers don't make a large salary. And when I started teaching in the 90s, we really didn't make a large salary. But I remember a lot of teachers just being really motivated to join out of fear. And their fear was if someone accused them of something, something went wrong in the classroom, that the teachers union was there to fight for them and help them keep their job. So they did it out of fear. And I really didn't understand that. I was just like, what? I wonder what you think you would do that would cause you to lose your job. But they talk about these $1 million like policies, insurance to help fight for your job, and that's how they got at least the conservative teachers in Oklahoma who did not believe in like the political party that the teachers union supported. And that's what got them to join, because there was no other aspect of the union that appealed to them. So that was one thing that set me apart, that I knew I was a little bit different than some of the other teachers in my viewpoints, was not joining the union. And then my first, real experience really seeing the union in action was, like you said, during the teacher walkout. And I just remember as a Christian just having a check in my spirit from the beginning when I heard that was the direction that they were going. It just didn't feel right to me, and I didn't exactly know why. And I personally did not go to the Capitol and participate in it, except I did one day. And I mean, it really kind of looked like a big party. I feel like most people were just relaxing and having a really good time and enjoying being around each other and getting to visit with each other. And who could blame them for that? Because that's teaching is actually kind of a really lonely job at times when you're just in the classroom with your kids and you don't have time to be around other teachers and just develop those relationships like I feel like you can in a lot of other professions. So, I couldn't blame them for that. But I just remember as it went on and on and on, thinking, how long is this going to go on? Like, what are they trying to do? Because I think I felt like surely they had already gotten out of this what they wanted to.
Well, I think the legislation that they were talking about had already passed before they ever came to the Capitol.
Right?
They had already passed it. And so they went and did it anyway.
Yeah. And I was so not aware of things back then, and still not totally when it comes to all of this stuff, because you just get so tired of it all. But I do think I remember that, and I just what is this? And I was friends with the superintendent of my school system, and because we had taught together just as colleagues before he went off and did other things and came back as the superintendent. And I even spoke to him and told him, I don't understand what's going on and how long this is going to continue and what we're trying to do here. And all he told me was, if you can't trust the process, can you trust me? And I was like, that's all our conversation was. And so then I just got off and was thinking about this and was like, well, I definitely don't trust this process. And I'm not totally sure I can trust him either. I just didn't understand any of it. But I could see that I was different from a lot of teachers at that point too, because they did trust the process, and that I guess they just wanted it to keep going forever. But after that, I was just really disheartened with public education, and that they felt like they needed to do something like that and go to what I felt was that extreme for I don't even remember how many weeks it was, but I just remember I felt like it went on and on. And do you remember how many weeks it was, Julia?
I don't remember. Jenny, do you remember?
No, I think I have put that out of my mind.
Yeah. So then after experiencing that, I think my goal as a teacher has just always been to serve the students, and it's like a ministry. And a Christian school in town had been asking me for a few years if I would consider coming to work for them. And I think that, I really never thought about that much until this one year. And it probably had a little bit to do with just experiencing what I did with the walkout. And so I finally started praying about that and decided, that was something that I would really like to try, that I would really enjoy a job that was a ministry more than anything. So I that leap, which was a huge pay cut, huge, and you don't get benefits and retirement and things like that. But I thought that I would just really enjoy being in an environment that was just a Christian environment, and that was our goal, was to teach kids and disciple kids about Jesus. But that is not what I experienced there. And it was a huge responsibility because it was a small school. So you have to teach several different grades. So you're on your own. You're the only one. That's the thing about a smaller school. You don't have like a team that you can work with. So you're on your own, trying to figure it all out and prep for all of these different grade levels and classes. And what I felt from the parents wasn't that they really had a big desire for you to teach their children about Jesus. I personally felt, and maybe it's because I'm a secondary teacher and not an elementary teacher, I don't know, but I thought that the pressure was to make sure that their kids aced their ACT and got scholarships to big universities. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting, because that was never my focus as a teacher, to make sure. I mean, I wanted all kids to live up to their potential and do what they, wanted to do, whether it was ace their ACT and go to a big important university, or go to VOTEC, or just start working, whatever they wanted to do. That was what I supported. And so I thought, oh, this is really interesting, because I didn't realize that was such an important focus. And I felt a lot of pressure from the parents, that, I better be get their kids ready for that.
Their goal.
Well, I want to ask you I want to back up for a second and ask you a couple of questions. So I started teaching in, let's see, I guess 92, 94, and taught until my son came along in 2002. And I taught at I taught at Deer Creek High School for a couple of years, and I taught as a teaching assistant at UCO, and I taught my last 4 years were at Independence Charter Middle School in Oklahoma City, and my mom was on the English. Taught English, 7th grade English, and I taught 7th grade science. And, I never had as long of a career as you did, but I can tell you that I had no interest in coming back teaching after. My husband and I had decided that I would stay home and raise children anyway, so I didn't really have a choice. That was the choice that we made as a family before we even had children. But even if I had the opportunity, I didn't want to go back, because the parents were on me constantly over the dumbest little things. I tell the story of a girl turned in a paper one time, and she was a really great student, but the paper before had been, not so great. So I put a smiley face on this one and said, hey, that's more like it, or something like that. And the mother brought me in to the principal's office, and the principal actually entertained that whole dog and pony show of, she put this smiley face on there, and really she's just making fun of my daughter and, what this says. And I remember the longer I taught there, the more I was in the principal's office over the dumbest stuff. And it was always the parents who were complaining about something that didn't even I was too hard. I didn't give a kid enough time to do whatever, fill in the blank. They put me on a plan of improvement, and the problem, and the interesting thing was, I had a published paper for a teaching style that I used, a little thing that I did. It was published in a paper. And so, the scores were coming up. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but it seemed like this independent charter middle school caved basically to every parent complaint. And instead of just letting me do my job or making any problems they had between they and I, it was always me being subjugated by the parents in front of and aided by the principal. And I was just at the end, I was going, well, what am I doing here? I have a master's degree. Why am I even bothering with this when, this is what's going to happen? I mean, I don't know how you felt about it, but I'm curious to know, did you have kind of a similar experience than mine, or?
No, I don't. I mean, I can kind of identify with you in that some parents are just difficult, and I think that they're more and more that way. I mean, I think that's very common, not the exception at all to experience that. I did not experience that much. I do I feel like I kind of had a taste of those types of parents in a small, like more rural district that I taught in for a few years, because it was like a small, rural, tight knit community. I felt like they weren't very accepting of someone from the city, that didn't live there. But fortunately for me, I feel like I've had very supportive principals, and I didn't feel like they were, siding more with the parent. So that has been nice. But I do feel like that is probably more the case in the Christian school and the private schools, even more than independent charter. It's hard for me to understand why they felt like they needed to do that. The private schools do it because they want to keep the parent. They want to keep the family. They want to keep the income. It's all about bringing money in, since they don't have funds coming in from anywhere else. So I think that can happen regularly in a private school, whether it's Christian or not, is kind of my guess.
Well, what made you change from a public school, and if I could ask, why leave the Christian school and then go to Epic? I mean, and what did you like about Epic or not like about Epic, or what has that experience kind of been like?
Well, I did not enjoy most aspects of the Christian school except the students. I totally enjoyed the students. I didn't enjoy the pressure to make kids, pass a test. I think that's ridiculous how much focus we put on testing. And so I did not enjoy that. And I did not enjoy that the focus at the Christian school really wasn't on discipleship and teaching a Christian worldview. In my opinion, I felt like it was the test and going to, a big deal college. So I was not the right fit at that school at all. So then I really think that the opportunity with Epic just came about because I had a friend that was there, and she had been in like the same district that I had been in for many years. And she had her master's degree and she had done counseling. And so and all of it's hard. I mean, that's like everybody's just trying, teachers are just trying to find a work-life balance and to feel like they're doing some good and not getting in trouble in the principal's office, every other day, or just feeling like they can't just go home and have an evening. So that was my friend's experience with Epic. She felt like she had better work-life balance and really enjoyed it. So I think that's probably why I decided to go to Epic now. And it's not better work-life balance. It's extremely hard. And it's especially when you first start, because it's just a whole nother animal from being in the brick and mortar school. But you don't have the classroom management issues because you're not in a classroom. And that is a huge, huge problem. And now, like, I just can't even imagine. I mean, it was just all God. I can't even imagine being in a brick and mortar school system with the COVID and, you know, the enforcing of the masks and the social distancing. And I mean, all that craziness. I wouldn't have been able to hang with that because I didn't believe any of it, not for a second.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to hang with that. So I just think it was God protecting me. And, you know, now it's like they're saying that kids can say that they're cats. And I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's the craziest thing ever.
Right.
What they're allowing, you know, and we all see it with all the, like, you don't have to be a teacher to see how crazy our society has come. But the public school system is, they allow it and they embrace it. And
They
I mean,
lead the way.
they've never been super strong about boundaries and rules. They've kind of let the kids, you know, run the show. You know, we went from when I first started teaching, it was mid 90s, that kids would honestly get detention for chewing gum, you know, and now, like, kids just do whatever they want, like, all the time.
Including crawling around on the floor like an animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said something earlier that I wanted to revisit. You said how expensive it is to be in the teachers union, and yet all these things, every education bill leads with so that we can pay our teachers. So the union that is supposedly fighting for teachers' increased salary is taking that money for themselves. And they hire lobbyists that make a ton of money, and they, you know, have their own unions, as far as I know, are doing just fine monetarily. They don't mind taking all that money from teachers. But even Common Core was snuck in a bill entitled Teacher Incentive Pay. I mean, it's like all they have to do is tag it Teacher Incentive Pay, and then they're always going to leave the teachers in the classroom hungry because they want to pass the next thing. And then the unions bring in the things that parents are upset about. So then you've got parents coming up to the school going, hey, wait a minute. And so it's just a vicious cycle that I don't know, unless we outlaw teachers unions and things like that and lobbyists. There's so much waste in our education budget. I mean, people are like, how, you know, education needs more money. It's like, no, education needs me to come in and fire everybody. For if I was just over the whole system for one day, I could fix that budget. It wouldn't take me a minute.
Right. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I think you could get a lot of public support outside of the school system, but I feel like a lot of the teachers, even in Oklahoma, still feel like the union is on their side and they're fighting for them, and things would not be good without them.
Right. And but teachers can't, pay a union to fight me and then ask me to pay them more money. That's wrong. No, it's kind of, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to something we said before we actually went live. And we were talking, a lot of the times you'll hear just members of the public who are enlightened say, well, why do teachers put up with this? I mean, because unfortunately anymore, with kind of the activist teachers that are out there, conservative teachers and Christian teachers get lumped in with them anymore, because
Right.
it's not the other way around. It's not like we're saying, oh, well, all the great teachers. Well, unfortunately, we've shown again and again and again that there aren't a bunch of great teachers out there. There are teachers who are pedophiles. There are teachers who are bringing in, LGBT, stuff into the classroom. I mean, there are issues with teachers, and that certainly wasn't always like that. But we always say, well, we're not talking about every teacher, but Julie has said, and I really agree with this, well, where are the conservative teachers then? If they don't like being lumped in with these other types of teachers, why aren't those teachers speaking out? And you said something earlier about, you kind of where you didn't really think about things too much until COVID, and then suddenly you had a different perspective. And I'd kind of like you to flesh that out a little bit, if you would.
Well, I think that it just, when COVID came along, and again, I just knew really before things really ramped up and got going, I had to check in my spirit. It was just discernment that this was another sham, and I didn't really, my husband had researched a lot of what was going on with our government and just all of the corruption. And he would tell me about it, and I would be like, oh, and then I would just go on about my life. But it was when COVID came along, and back then it was called Corona, not COVID, but God just like took the blinders off my eyes, and it was just like a sped up, just education revealing of everything that was, and I mean, maybe not everything, but I feel like I know way more than the average person about the corruption. And it's really in every segment of our society. It's not just education. But before that, I would listen to people talk about the problems with education and the corruption in education and the problems, with the money not getting to the teachers or not getting to the classroom and stuff. But I think it didn't really make as much sense to me until God just took the blinders off, and I could see the corruption in every area. So I think that's really what it comes down to, is every part of our society has corruption, and you do need to follow the money, with whether it's a teachers union or a vaccination or whatever it is that we're dealing with. You need to follow the money and do your research and find out what's really behind it, instead of letting fear make your decisions. Fear that you're going to lose your job, so you have to join the teachers union and support all kinds of things that you don't want to support, or fear that you're going to get this illness or give it to someone and people are going to die, so you're going to take this experimental shot that has all kinds of bad things that come along with it. You need to start doing your research and quit making decisions out of fear, and just because it's what we've always done.
Right.
So in you had mentioned earlier that the work-life balance, which was important. But then you said when you went to Epic, you didn't have as much work-life balance as you had hoped. I know a lot of people who started out with Epic, and now are they said when they started, there was some Christian curriculum even that they could get into. And they say now, not so much, they can't really find it. What has been kind of your trajectory with Epic? I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Are you still enjoying teaching? I mean, kind of go into that, if you would, just a little bit, because I think most people don't understand what teaching is like. And I know that they don't. I mean, even when I was a teacher and you had teachers, screaming about raises, I was fine with what I made. But then you do put, I mean, if you're a good teacher, you put a lot of effort into it. I mean, it's not a 9 to 5 job during the time that school is in session. I mean, it's more like a 7 o'clock to 11:30 p.m. kind of a job. By the time you get in grading and making sure that you're doing, your lesson for the next day and you've got that all fleshed out, and you're writing down your notes, and I mean, it just takes a lot of effort. So I just kind of, you might just talk a little bit about, Epic, and kind of where you are with that.
I still enjoy Epic. I mean, there's still a lot of stress with it, but like I said, I feel like there's such a learning curve when you first start. So it is hard those first couple of years. I mean, for me, probably just like the first year was especially hard, but you learn the ins and outs of it, and I still enjoy it. And yes, absolutely, they will not allow us to use public funds to purchase Christian curriculum. So if that's the kind of curriculum you want to use, then you can't purchase it through Epic. So because it's a state public school. So I feel like that Epic, under their former owners, made, it sounds like, a lot of mistakes. And I really appreciate the leadership now and what they're trying to do. And I feel like they're headed in a better direction. So I think Epic is a good choice. And I mean, that's what they're about. They want to give families another choice. And a lot of families just aren't where they are feeling like they can just homeschool on their own. So I still, when I talk to families, and they ask me, what's the best thing? And I'm like, the best thing is what's best for you. So I totally understand that some students, they still enjoy going to school. I enjoyed going to school. I couldn't have imagined not getting up and going to school and being around friends and being in the traditional school. So if that's your student, then that might be the right choice for you. But again, you're going to have to be very plugged in and know everything that's going on with your student, from every teacher that they're exposed to, and then just the peers. I mean, just because of all the craziness. So some families don't want to deal with that, and I completely understand that, and I support that. So I think that's why Epic is a good choice for some people, because you don't have as much of that. You work closely with your teacher. That's what's nice about Epic too, is you really get to know the families, and they're going to know what I'm about and what I'm saying and doing. And so if that's, if you want to really know what your student is being taught, then you have every availability to do that with Epic, because the curriculum is on their device, or whatever method that they're using, and you can read every single word and figure out everything that's being taught. You could be on the Zoom calls and whatever you need to do to hear what's being taught to your students. So to me, that's why I think Epic is still a good choice. I think homeschooling is a great choice, and I love that more and more families are going that direction. We need more choices, but we also need to just push back against the craziness and the corruption.
Right. Well, one of the things you said about, that because Epic is public schools or has public money, they cannot teach a Christian curriculum or, make that kind of a choice. And now we've got people wanting they called it a tax credit. It's not a tax credit. So, that's a big red flag. But the taking the school choice money into up to now, non-governmental homeschool choice, it's going to do the exact same thing that happened with Epic. You can start out taking that money and teaching a Christian curriculum, but you're not going to end up being able to, because they're going to figure it out.
Right.
And,
that's my understanding. True homeschool families, they do not want
it.
Part of that, because they want autonomy. They want to be in control, and they're aware that that won't happen if they're taking any kind of public funds. So,
well, and it's if it's they like to bill it as, oh, it's your money anyway, you should take it, you should be able to keep your money. Well, if it's their money already, why did the government have to pass a bill to give it to them? It's a nice line, but it's a lie again. They just lie, and it gets so old. Just to hook people, and those kind of things, and and plus the data collection, because they didn't even hide the fact that if you're getting to keep your money, we're going to check and make sure that you're using it for what we say you should be using it for.
Right.
So that's data collection, and in your home, they want access to being in the home.
Yes.
So, it's been a little crazy. The whole, well, not crazy like a fox. It's the same people that were pushing Common Core that are pushing school choice, which we've already got the choices, and you're right, the homeschool people and the private school people should, I hope we can educate the church schools and the private schools that money comes with strings attached, but they're private schools, so it's it's not as easy as if you've got the unions saying, well, the unions along with the school board association, along with the superintendent's association, along with all the lobbyists they hire, that make you think, the education budget needs to increase, which is just ridiculous. But
so, Michele, as you've been a teacher for so many years, are there any things that you kind of noticed about kids or about society or about parents or about education? I mean, have you seen any trends? I mean, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I feel like most people see this, but I daydream. I wonder how great it would have been to teach school like when my parents were in school. Because it's just our society. They were taught respect, and you always heard the stories that if they got in trouble at school, then they got in trouble at home. There was a lot of respect for teachers, and I don't feel like that they had to deal with a lot of stuff that teachers now are having to deal with. I think that teaching was a job that people wanted and sought out as a good job, and now I feel like that. I mean, it's sad, but it's just not one of those jobs anymore that people seek out, because not just because of the pay, but because of the disrespect, the treatment that that you're going to face from society if you like you, Jenny, when you made decisions and just like a simple smiley face and what you thought was like an encouragement, that parent read completely differently. And there was no like trying to understand where you're coming from. It was just, let's call you into the principal and make sure that you get reprimanded. And it's hard to understand. Okay, what is their goal there? like with that,
Right.
why aren't we able to have a conversation and a dialogue and work together and do what's best for the student instead of having this, ugh.
Well,
Well,
so I even want to back up too, then, and because we've been told how many years, I mean, and you were just telling us about, the teacher walkouts. Teachers are leaving the profession because they're not making enough money. Well, clearly I didn't really care about money, and I left the teaching profession because I got sick of the parents and the administration
Right.
treating me like I got no respect, for anything. So I just didn't see why I needed to put in my time, to do any of that. And it kind of sounds like you've noticed the same thing. If that's the case, then it bothers me that we're using a completely incorrect, and if you would, beyond incorrect, obviously, that they know teachers are leaving the profession because classroom management is the bottom line,
Yeah.
and that administration not allowing teachers to have autonomy over their classroom and actively manage their own classrooms. If that's the problem, and we're being told that we just need to solve this problem with more money because that's why teachers are leaving, aren't we don't we probably need to get teachers to tell the true story here?
I think the true story is always the way to go. It's not always the safest way to go, but that's just where we are. And like I said, just God pulling back the veil off of people's eyes and really revealing the truth of what's really going on. And we just need to deal in the truth. And instead of manipulating people and things to get the money that they want to get for the unions, which isn't really for the teachers, and that kind of thing. We need to just face the facts that we're being lied to and manipulated in this profession and just in society as a whole, because people have agendas. And I mean, it goes, I don't want to get, too like out there, but it goes deep, this, like, we started hearing about deep state. Deep state is a lot deeper than we realize. So, it's only going to be solved with God. And I still have faith that it will. I still have faith that it will. I don't know how long, but that's still where I put my faith. And I just try to share truth wherever I can with whoever I can, just hoping that more and more people get there, that mindset of there's things going on that are bad. And I know everybody's busy and just trying to like make ends meet and survive, but we're at a point in time where we can't just bury our heads in the sand and ignore all of the corruption and the deceitfulness, and the evil. We as Christians, we have got to educate ourselves, seek the Lord, figure out what we're supposed to do, and start taking ground back.
Right. Well, and the first thing that was attacked was morality, basically. Yes. They started teaching evolution. That was what was started back in my day, and teaching kids that you're no better than a monkey.
Right.
And then from there, it's just devolved. It's just evolved into literally children acting like animals at
Right.
school, and that's supposed to be acceptable behavior. And
Right.
you can go back and watch Leave It to Beaver, where dad is walking out the door with his suit on, and mom's vacuuming with her beautiful dress and pearls. I mean, quite frankly, it's just gone so far south. That was
Right.
the 50s, and yes, that was a long time ago now. But now kids dressing up like, when did the animal thing start? Because you would think that was just now starting to happen, but I've got some of my best friends' kids graduated almost 10 years ago now, and they experienced that kind of thing happening in the best of the best, the reddest of the red count, reddest county in the reddest state. So we thought, and how did that? Who made the decision that crawling around like an animal was okay in schools? That's what I want to know. And why do parents put up with it?
Right. I don't know.
Well, why do you suppose, Michelle, why do you suppose teachers don't? I mean, you've been pretty specific about, what you think are some of the problems that we're having today. Why do you think other teachers don't speak out? Why do you think that good teachers don't defend themselves? Why do you think that teachers don't say, here's what's going on? The teacher next door, has an LGBT flag on their wall. And I mean, whatever the thing might be, why do you think teachers don't say anything?
Well, I mean, I think it probably comes back to fear and, just not wanting to rock the boat. And, I mean, everybody wants to be liked and accepted. So it's hard to stand up especially if it's like a personal thing, like your neighbor at school is promoting things, that shouldn't be promoted. If we can't pray in school and have it be known as Christians in school, then really any other ideology needs to stay out of the classroom too. It shouldn't be,
Right.
well, it's okay for this group, but it's not okay for this group. It needs to be like
Right.
all the same.
Right.
Okay.
The anti-Christian is welcome, and the Christian is not welcome.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
quite frankly, you talking about you wished you could have taught when your parents were in school.
Right.
That would be me, my age group, and pretty much all of our teachers in my small town, I knew where they went to church.
Right.
So it is a societal thing.
Right.
For sure. And I'm not sure you would have gotten the job if you weren't in church. That's just kind of everybody knew. And everybody was in church.
Right.
And so those, the behavior, the people respecting one another, that all comes from, Christian worldview.
Right.
And you can see what happens when it's gone.
Right.
Have you had any run-ins with SEL? Social emotional learning?
I haven't. I mean, I see it popping up more and more, but I haven't personally had any experience with it.
Do they try to train you in that, even at Epic? Do they, some of the extra training that you get?
Not to my knowledge, no. Is that going on in other schools? Have you heard?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's like in every crack and crevice, pretty much.
Yeah. Edmond Public Schools is fairly deep in that, very deep in that, and Oklahoma City Public Schools. I mean, it seems to be the bigger systems, but it's interesting to me that Epic seems to, not have succumbed to that. Why don't you even, because I think there are people that don't really understand how Epic works
Yeah.
Today, because it's not the same, that it was when it started. I mean, they've made some different changes. What is your day like as a teacher, and or your week probably is the better. What do you do as a teacher for Epic?
Well, I feel like what the change in Epic has been, which, I wasn't there from the beginning, but again, like COVID really like put a wrench in things where we went to, all Zoom and, not meeting. We didn't even have a place to meet, because a lot of Epic teachers rely on the libraries for a meeting place, since we don't have a brick and mortar. But I feel like now the shift is trying to get back more to in-person meetings. We still have a lot of Zoom meetings, so of course, as a teacher and, any professional, I feel like meetings with your colleagues are often on Zoom. So, it's always been that way with Epic since people are remote and across the state. There are some big in-person meetings a few times a year, but your weekly meetings are over Zoom. But they're just really trying to get to where they can meet with students more in person, and even for like a longer school day. So that's what I'm participating in this year. It's the second year of what they're calling the schoolhouse model. And to me, it's just kind of a hybrid of what Epic has been, which is, students at home learning, usually more with a computer device, online curriculum driven. Not that they have to. I mean, they can certainly use like textbooks and workbooks and things, but most families go with the online curriculum, and meeting with your teacher and maybe a few other students for like a few hours a week. We're trying to shift more to where we can meet with students and in groups for more than just a few hours a week. The problem is still where to meet, since we don't have a brick and mortar, building in every neighborhood that we can use. So my work week's just shifting a little bit, and right now I'm really like actively looking for meeting places, and that's a problem. And churches are often helpful with that. There's a teacher on my team that it sounds like a bowling alley is going to let her because people bowl in the evening. So in the daytime, they're like letting her have the bowling alley and going to put the kids on leagues and give them hot dogs and things. So it's like a really neat situation. So I like that. Yeah, I like that. That there's partnerships forming with the Epic teachers and businesses and churches and things in the community. So I'm excited about that aspect of it. But that's just really the goal is really to kind of give the family more choices and that more face-to-face, in-person time. But the problem still is, with public school or brick and mortar schools, the kids get on the bus and they go, and a lot of families, it's babysitting. It's they get someone takes care of their kids most of the day. But we don't have that. So a lot of families can't participate to that full extent because both parents are working outside the home, or it's a single family, home or single parent home, and the parent is not there and can't transport them to a meeting place to meet with the students. So that will be like the next big hurdle that they'll try to overcome. But for now, it's still, they just rely a lot on being able to meet over Zoom.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you what's the makeup of most of your students, or and maybe I shouldn't even say most. I know that when we began homeschooling, it was because our oldest son was being bullied. And so and then the oldest or the youngest daughter was being um oh, we had a lot of global warming. It was a lot of political nonsense that she was getting in 4th grade. I'm like, don't you need to be doing something else besides teaching her about global warming and that the world is going to end? I mean, some of the papers that came home were just ludicrous for a 4th grader. I mean, just nonsense. What kind of students, I mean, why are these families choosing Epic? Do you know? And I mean, is there a pattern there?
I feel like most families, there's something's not working for them in the brick and mortar school, and a lot of times it is bullying, and some students and families just want more freedom. They don't want to have to drop off their kid at 7 o'clock in the morning and pick them up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, and I mean, there's all different reasons. So a lot of students that have other interests. They're like rodeo champions, and participate in sports and things. That takes up a big part of their day, and they're not able to like be at a school, all of that time. So, I mean, I think that homeschoolers have figured out that you can get a lot more done when you're not in a building with all of the things that go on in a shorter amount of time. So I think that some families just appreciate that it's just not such a full day for their students, off away from them, out of the home. And some families just feel like their needs are not being met in the brick and mortar school, which is understandable. And
So you're saying it's not necessary to warehouse kids from 7:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. in order to educate, give them a good education. Yeah.
It's, I mean, I think everybody absolutely knows that to be true, except, that the bad guys have made it where, families, they have to work, and they probably have to work harder now than they ever have before. So a lot of families rely on that ability to take them somewhere and have someone else take care of them so that they can go out and work. So I mean, that's been a problem for years. I think I think teachers have always known that you didn't need them all of that time, but society wants that, and I mean, truly, the bad guys want that too.
Right.
No,
they want government raising kids is exactly what they want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a matter to a great degree of priorities,
right?
And the just that can be, but it's a vicious cycle. Again, it's just one thing leads to the other, which leads to the other, and people are perfectly happy with their neighbors taking their neighbors' money to pay for what they want, the lifestyle that they want. And that's, when we ditch biblical principles, it's this downward spirals put in place. So
right.
But so how long does it take you as a kind of an average in your day to educate your students? because I'm sure that you're focused on like really teaching your children how to read, really math, really, the real academics as opposed to all the other stuff. So how many
Um,
hours do you spend at Epic?
well, I mean, we try to keep it just to a normal, day as much as possible. So, you start your day at 8 and go to 3 or 4, but a lot of that is clerical tasks that you're having to take care of. So it's not all spent with students, but I mean, you're just my dog is going to start barking. I can tell he's right there.
First.
So with the new model, what my day is probably going to look like is I will be somewhere in person with, and I'm just going to have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So with these 3 age groups, and I'll hopefully be able to co-op with some other teachers, and we'll kind of switch around a little bit, but we just want to get back to more of that in person, and the students being able to be together and do more group learning and project type things that are really prohibited when they're home alone, just working
Right.
individually. So the day would be like 2 days of in person, probably more like 10 to 2 would be our hours, and that is really kind of a long day. I don't know that all families would be able to do that, but that is just my group's goal. And then the other 2 days would be more Zoom classes. So you divide them up like a 6th grade ELA class and in a 7th grade math class, and do them like that. And then Fridays are for like team meetings, more clerical things on Friday typically. But with the schoolhouse model, we are going to try to do field trips or fun trips once a month or so. So some Fridays we'll devote to that. So
Well, I was, when my kids were in elementary school, something had happened and they said they were somebody was gonna lose their recess privileges. And I said, they probably learned that it was a child that I knew. I said, that child probably learns more at recess than he does in your classroom. Right. I made a whole group of teachers really mad at me that day. And I was like, that kid, I'm not kidding. That child, he learns more at recess.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean,
the field trips, and that would be me to a degree. Not that I was a good student, but man, I learned life teaches you way more if you're out doing things and learning things and experiencing things. It's like when you start your first job, even though you may have gone to school for that job, you learn way more in your first year on the job than you did learning about the job.
Absolutely.
So I love field trips and that kind of thing. Yeah. That would be fun.
Yes. Well, we're over time, which is not abnormal, just a little bit. But Michele, if you had any parting words or anything to say, to kind of close out our broadcast today, what would it be? Do you have some words of wisdom for teachers, other teachers, maybe legislators, family, whoever it might be?
I think that we just need to start doing research. And I know, it's a time thing for a lot of people, and people not knowing where to look, because if you Google something, the chances of you getting to the truth, it's probably not going to happen. So, if you need to, you just need to look around you and find the people in your life that probably have a different viewpoint and an outlook on things than you do. And, you know, go to coffee or just start messaging them and asking them, like, where should you start looking, and what do they know about this? And just start opening your eyes to what's going on, and don't quit making decisions out of fear, and quit just accepting that just because something has always been a certain way, that it needs to keep being that way. Um, the government is not the boss of you.
Yeah.
You are a child of God. You know, you have everything that you need within you, and you do not have to be pushed around and told what to do. And we shouldn't be. It is time to start taking back ground. And something that I have felt like the Lord has spoken to me these last few crazy years is we need to occupy until Jesus comes. I would love, I mean, for Jesus to come today, you know, and I think when we say when Jesus comes, what we mean is by we're going to be taken up out of here, raptured, you know, go to heaven. We're not going to have to deal with this fallen world anymore. But we need to occupy until that time. No one, honestly, we have no clue when that is going to be. I mean, we can think we do, but we really don't know. So it's time for the church, the followers of Christ. It's time for us to occupy and start taking back ground, and not just letting all of this craziness take over everything and everyone. God uses people. He will always use people, you know, and we're his people. So we have to allow him to use us now more than ever.
Right.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Michele. We do appreciate that, and for taking your time. And school, it's hard to believe, but school starts next month.
I know.
I don't know where the time went, where summer went, but it was gone. So, good luck to you starting next year, and thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you.
To you and yours, and I appreciate all that you're doing and hanging in there, and trying to be that good teacher.
Well, I appreciate you all. I appreciate you more and more the more that, you know, I figure out what's going on, and God, you know, takes the blinders off. I know you guys have been fighting this fight for a long time, and way more than most people. So thank you, and keep it up.
Thanks. Yep. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All
right. Who do we have for next week?
Who do we have?
Oh, no, on Friday. We have Lawrence. Friday
is Lauren Straka. She started For Heaven's Sake, which was when she started, it was just a daycare. And they're about to have their 20th anniversary. I just saw yesterday they're almost 20 years old for the daycare.
And what's it called?
For Heaven's Sake. She wanted a Christian daycare in Yukon, and her building is the cutest Dr. Seuss looking building that you've ever seen. It's my favorite building in Yukon. And Lauren has 7 kids. So if you have a question about it, you know, her pouring her life into kids, she does that on every front. Her mom was when Lauren babysat my kids, her mom was my kids' children's church director. Anyway, so we've got a lot of ties. But she saw the need to become a pre-K. She wanted to extend the Christian biblical worldview into pre-K. And now they're a school. Now they're becoming an elementary school. It's just growing as she sees needs. And so she's got uh, she's one of the ones that, in my opinion, is in the business of giving the kids the climate that they need to grow healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually, all the things. And so that will be Lauren Straka, and I think she's going to have a couple of her directors on with her as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So
All right.
it'll be
that'll
a good conversation.
So that'll be Friday morning at 9:00.
Yes.
So don't forget. And we've already lined up our August guest roster, and we're still waiting on one date, but otherwise we've got everything put together, and I think everybody's going to like it. So I'll get it published hopefully this week on our website, on our calendar, so that everybody will know who's on. And we will see everybody on Friday for Lauren Straka and
For heaven's sake.
For heaven's sake. I don't know why I can't seem to get that. For heaven's sake. All right. We'll see you guys on Friday at 9 a.m. And thanks as always for being with us. And we'll see you then.